besties, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kyan and this is Kyan is Booked. We're doing our August wrap up today. I think I said this last month as well, but I've been really struggling with my wrap ups because I like to talk about the books that I read, but also too, I feel like these go on so long and then I get rambly. I don't know, I'm just going through a wrap up crisis, I guess is the best way to say it. So I have it organized by series that I read because I did actually finish three series. I have two ongoing, and I'll explain one of the ongoing ones because it's for a video that I want to do, for videos I want to do. So we'll start off with the Kingdom of Lies series, which begins with A Court This Cruel and Lonely, I believe. I feel like this is, okay, hang on a second. I'm about to jiggle this a little bit. There we go. So I was like, I'm sitting up straight. Why do I look so weird in this? Okay, so we're back, baby. So this follows Lauren and Prisha. And in this world, you're not allowed to have magic until a certain age. So you have to give up your magic to the kingdom so that they can use your magic to essentially funnel everything that they need in the kingdom and essentially take care of everybody. And then you're giving your magic back when you hit a certain age. But if you are found out to have magic and that you didn't give it away, because there are certain types of magic that don't respond well. Don't respond well to being given and to being used for anything else. If you're found to have magic, then you're killed instantly because you didn't give your sacrifice to the gods, essentially is what is the viewpoint over all of it, right? So Prisha knows that she has magic. Her entire family knows that she has magic. And it's not something that she's tried over and over again to give it up, but she's not able to. But the big thing is the older she gets, the harder it becomes to control, right? So then it becomes this whole convoluted story of how her parents aren't really her parents, and how she's found out that she has magic within her veins, and then she has to go on the run. So when she goes on the run, she meets Lauren, and Lauren is going to be our male main character in the series, and he's out with a band of mercenaries, and they are looking for specific things for the king that he serves. And oh my gosh, there are different courts, and I want to say they're the Winter Court. Not like that, not, it's something to that effect. And I wish I had written it down, but I didn't. So you'll just have to be really surprised. So he and a group of his friends, AKA the mercenaries, run up against Prisha, and she's like, I need help, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, you're only going to hold me back, so I can't help you. Sorry about that. And then so he leaves her essentially stranded there. And then they meet up later, and he needs her magic to do what he needs to do, right? So he's like, I'll protect you in exchange for you letting me borrow your magic, essentially. So I gave A Court This Cruel, essentially I gave the entire series 4 stars. It was a 4-star series for me. I really enjoyed it. I think I probably would have enjoyed it more had I not read so many fantasy romances recently. It's not that I didn't like it. It's not that I didn't enjoy the story. It's not that I didn't binge the series. It's just it was a fae romance. It was really good, but it wasn't anything that shattered my world, I guess. And I don't think a 4-star series is a bad series. So that one was by Stacia Stark, I believe, if I said that correctly. Next up, we're going to talk about the Black Falls High series by KG Reese. So I met her at Readers Take Denver, and I was really intrigued by the fact that essentially she has a giant universe just like Rena Kent does. And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool. I still read bully romances every once in a while. So the Black Falls High follows our main character Rosalie, and Fox, Ethan, Cole, and Enzo. They're the 4 horsemen at the high school, and Fox and her were actually best friends growing up. They're neighbors, all that kind of stuff. His mom dies. He turns into somebody that she doesn't recognize. And then they have a really tumultuous relationship up until this point in the series where the 4 horsemen are bullying her, and they're going back and forth, and she's trying to stand up to them, and they're like, you're gonna stand up to us. type deal, right? So this is the first series within, like, I think it's called the Chaos Universe, within the Chaos Universe. So I read In Ruins, In Silence, In Pieces, and In Chaos. So it was like a 3.5 to 4, right? So it wasn't bad, but what I've noticed, and I'll talk more about this in my September wrap up because I went further into the universe. But what I noticed is like each of these could be like one less book, in my humble opinion. Like, some things just go on forever and it drives me up a wall. Like, I don't love it. So, I don't hate this series. I do like the enemies to lovers, the childhood best friends. There's a lot of trauma in this. Like, you really do need to check the trigger warnings if you have trigger warnings, because like Rosalie goes through a lot, but then so do like, she goes like, each of her relationships with the guys go through a lot too. And there's perceived cheating in this. You'll understand if like you read it. So like, I'm not saying don't read it. I'm just saying like, understand that there are going to be instances where you feel like a lot, like some things are like redundant and probably could have like just not been there, I guess is the best way to say it. I've stopped reading the universe. Maybe I'll go back, maybe I won't go back, but I was just getting like really frustrated with the fact that I was never getting any answers. And it was just like, oh, I have to pick up another book that's 500 pages. Oh, here's another 500 pages. And I'm like, I'd rather go read something else. So there's that. Take that with what you will. I started Dirty Little Secrets, which is the Kings of Bolton, which is the next one in the Chaos Universe. So this comes right after the series I just talked about. And this one follows Bianca. Her dad goes missing. Her mom marries a man. The man is like, has mafia ties. So he essentially sells her off to be married to one of the mafia bosses. And will among the mafia boss's kids to like unite the families to then take over everything, right? So the rival family is like, oh, we need to get her away from him. Like, we need, like, you know, essentially she's going to be a pawn for them, right? So they're like, how do we get her? Like, how do we own her, et cetera, et cetera. But then she shows up and she goes, listen, like, old boy's going to kill me. I need your help. Like, you know, like, can you take care of me? Blah, blah, blah. And like, the deal is like, she has to be, committed to them and like the family and things like that. And there's a lot that happens in this one. It does tie back to the Black Falls High. So you see the Black Falls High couples and all of that. And then they become like very intrinsically tied in both of these series. So like, you want to read Black Falls High first. So like, I really like seeing like the other characters again, because like, I really did like love the characters, and Cole was my favorite in Black Falls High. And Vincent's my favorite in the Kings of Bolton series. So you do want to read one before you read the other. Just like, you can read them separately, but like, I think you will appreciate how the Black Falls High group like handles himself, the Four Horsemen handles himself when it comes to like, you know, their interactions with this group in the Kings of Bolton. So gonna leave it at that. Next up, I read this chunker, Glow of the Everflame. And yeah, this is the indie book cover. I'm pretty sure you can't get it anymore, so who is she? Anyways, so this book is, let me see, 594 pages. It feels like so much longer. What's crazier though is I read it on Kindle, so anytime you read it on Kindle, you don't realize like how chunky the book is until you go to pick your paperback up. Right? So, this book, we pick up, so this is the second book in the series. I kind of slowed down on the series because the fourth and final book was supposed to come out on my birthday, which is July 31st, and then it got pushed, and I was like, so I read this one, and the cliffhanger I had already guessed, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I was expecting, so I've kind of slowed down, and I'm waiting to read the third book, like right before the fourth book releases. But anyways, so this follows Diem and Luther, and this is like right on the heels of the crown choosing like the next ruler, and it's not necessarily who everybody expected it to be. So with the support of Luther, Diem's going through a lot in life right now, and it's really starting to like tear apart like her family relationships. Like, you know, her mom hasn't resurfaced yet. She's having to battle like a lot of political situations, which have turned like super nasty for her. And Luther's like super supportive and is trying to help her through all of it and trying to support her like where he can, because he understands like how overwhelming it is, like the situation that she has found herself in. So that's where we pick up in this one. We do get, I found it interesting, we do get like random points of view from her mom. So I feel like how she tied into the end was exactly where I thought she was going to. I did enjoy it. It was a solid 4-star read for me. Did I think it needed to be 564 pages? No. But I always hesitate to comment on like the middle books of a series, because I learned that lesson reading the Throne of Glass series, because I definitely didn't like some of the books as much as I thought I was going to. Like, everybody talks about Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, and then Air of Fire being the one that like really turns the series, but those two books are so pivotal to setting up the rest of the plot lines, right? So I don't want to say, oh, it shouldn't have been this long, because like I don't really know. I haven't finished the series yet, and I might have like a different viewpoint once I do finish the series. I did really like it though. Solid like enemies to lovers, and now like she has to rely on him, and she has to rely on so many different people right now who were her enemies before this moment. And there is betrayal in this one, but I thought it was a very interesting like betrayal and how it kind of all ended up in the end. And like the reasoning behind the betrayal, I felt like wasn't malicious, I guess is the best way to say it. So I liked it. Solid 4 stars. I really do want to finish the series, so I am hoping that she releases book 4 soon. But I also want it to be like a really good book 4, so she can take all the time she needs, you know? And then I fell into the comfort reads of one of my favorite series, which is the In Death series by J.D. Robb. Last month I talked about the first 3 books, but I read like a really, really solid amount this month. I actually listened to all of them on audio, so I've been like working on grades and like working on a lot of stuff for my classrooms. Like I just pop my audio in like while I'm updating things. I don't want to go too deep into it because like this is actually for a video concept, which is something you'll probably see in October if I can get as far in the backlist as I need to, because like as you guys know, like the 60th book just released, something around there. So this is a really long and lengthy series, and like I love Even Rorik, so I want to like put more of the Even Rorik love out there. And I had to go back to the earlier books because some of these books I read back in like 2020. And while I remember like vague concepts, some of it has felt like I've been rereading these books for the first time. I'm like, oh yeah, it was that dude who did it. So the first book I read was Rapture and Death, and I gave this one 4 stars again. So this is a situation of like 3 apparent suicides. And I say apparent because like obviously Eve's investigating them. So we then later kind of find out that like they're not suicides, they're homicides, but like how were they staged so perfectly essentially. Rorik does become a target in this one, and y'all better believe Eve's like, not my man. This is one of the ones where I couldn't remember like who did it, but then when it happened at the end, I was like, oh, right, that dude. So Rapture and Death, 4 stars. Next up, you have Ceremony and Death, and this one follows a cop cop dies, right? And like everybody's going to the funeral and stuff, and Eve meets like his family, and then his granddaughter comes to Eve for like help because like she's in trouble and she doesn't know what to do. And then the granddaughter ends up dead, and it's this massive investigation into like this cult like following for like religion or whatever. It's essentially a cult that follows like the devil, and she ends up like going from the light to the darkness, at least because there's one that follows like I wouldn't say Christianity, but it is like it's a cult, and like they have their own beliefs and etc. So she falls out of that one into the one that like really like honest to God worships the devil. And I remembered who did it, but I forgot like the lead up into all of it. So, and of course, like, you know, Eve's gonna go to the mat because Feeney, who is the captain of the electronics department and her former partner and like essentially her trainee and pseudo dad, he was partners with the cop who was killed. before he took Eve on. So Feeny was just like, you know, this is one of my best friends, et cetera, et cetera. So like, there isn't anything Eve's not going to do to make sure that like, they get answers. So I gave this one 4 stars. Next up is Vengeance and Death. So this is, what is this? Oh yeah, I remember this one. This all ties back to Rorik. So this is an entire book about, because we all know Rorik had like a bad boy past, which is like arguably a big reason why like we love him so much. And like he's on the straight and narrow now, especially being married to Eve. Like he did get rid of a lot of the commodities that like previously were not so appropriate for him being married to a cop. So this is essentially like people that he knew in the past are being murdered by somebody. We don't know who. I did not remember this one. I knew one situation with Somerset and this like chick that he was dating was like kind of hinky, but I did not remember who did this. And it was just such a fun ride to like go back to this. And also too, to watch Eve like really struggle with the fact that like someone's coming after her man. And it's like, it's a full frontal assault. They've made it very clear. Like they leave notes to her on the body saying that like he's going to be the last victim and like there's nothing that she can do to save him. And it's this like wild ride. But it was so good. And I think this is one, I guess on 4 stars originally. And I just wrote down like my original star ratings, but like I might bump this up to a 5 when I go back in and added everything into Goodreads. But I did also too like how like Rorik butted his way into like all of these situations, and he's like, I'm not gonna let you, like I'm not gonna hide behind you type deal. Next up you have Holiday and Death. I gave Holiday and Death a 5 star the first time I read it. It's definitely a 5 star the second time. You'll also notice that like I have some of like the newer covers, but also too I was able to get some of like the first edition covers, so that's why they look different. Anyways, so this one follows a serial killer who dresses up as Santa and shows up at people's houses and then essays them and murders them. All in the week of Christmas. It is a wild ride. How Eve ends up getting him is so creative. And I know it's like, why would I like this book so much, and why would I give this one a 5 stars if it's, you know, like as morbid as it is and it's surrounding like the holidays, but the concept of it is what really gripped me, because who wouldn't trust Santa Claus knocking on their door, right? Did I not write this one down? I didn't. So Conspiracy and Death, as you can see, like I just binged hard. So this one follows, what do you call it? A person who is essentially going around and taking people's organs, like black market type deal, which is interesting because like, if you remember, this takes place in like 2058 and the world's just like a little bit different. So like they have synthetic organs. So organ donation isn't such a big deal, but they're not taking perfect organs. Like they're taking like a heart that's like 2 days away from giving out, like a liver full of like disease and things like that. So originally they thought they were like murdering these people and taking the organs to like study the organs. So it was a very interesting concept. I did enjoy this. I believe I gave this one 4 stars on my first time around, and I would give it 4 stars this time around too. Like I really liked the concept. I just like, there was so much political red tape that Eve had to go through. And like, if you know me, like I hate political red tape, like about anything. Like I work in the education system and there's so much red tape that is disgusting, but I did find it interesting. This is also where we pick up Troy Trueheart, who is going to be a pretty big character like later on in the series. When my video comes out, I want to tell you the concept, but I'll be going like more in depth in each of these books, like within the video. But so Troy becomes like a really big deal like later on in the series, because at this point in time, Delia Peabody is working with Eve as her aide with the intention of her eventually becoming a detective, right? So she's working towards that. And then Trueheart also wants to become a detective, and Eve is like, people know her and she closes cases and she's no nonsense and she's one of like the best lieutenants on the force. So like to be brought onto her team is like a really big deal. So this is where we gain Trueheart. Next up we have Loyalty and Death. And this one's wild. So I don't want to give it away, but essentially somebody's like blowing up portions of New York and attempting to kill people, but they're blowing up portions of New York that Rorik owns, which is kind of hilarious because he's a billionaire and he owns like almost every single case. There's at least one building where a dead body ends up that Rorik owns. And it's just like this running joke in the series now. But essentially like it's a political message of, you know, like overthrowing the government type deal, a cult that they thought they had eradicated, and then surprise, surprise, they haven't. I gave Loyalty and Death 5 stars first time around. It's a definite 5-star this time around. It was too good. Witness and Death. So this is actually a really cool concept. Eve and Rorik are out sharing a night on the town. They're at one of the plays at a theater that Rorik owns that like, you know, his theater's putting on. It's open night. And a prop knife gets switched out with a real knife, and a fake murder on stage ends up as a real murder. So it was such a cool concept. I really liked like the behind the scenes of like, I'm a theater kid, like back in the day, back in high school. So like the behind the scenes and stuff like just felt like really like nostalgic to me. So I really loved going back to this one. So Witness and Death, definite 4-star. Next, I listened to Betrayal and Death. I don't remember. Oh, I remember what it is. Okay. So this one is like, there's this notorious assassin and he's come to town and he started like killing people. And it's people connected to like lower level businesses of Rorik's because essentially like Rorik always has this like target on his head because he's this rich dude and everybody wants what he has, even though like he's literally from the gutters of Ireland and like was a pickpocket and like worked his way literally from the slums, from the trenches, if you will, to be who he is today. So it's a much larger plot. And this guy is like, he's got thousands upon thousands of bodies. And it's just an interesting concept to watch Eve track him down, like using foundation. I gave it 4 stars. And then I listened to Interlude in Death, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's a 3.5-hour audiobook. It's like one of the novellas. I did not listen to it to my first time around when I read the series. I only read the full books, if you will. So like this time around, I'm trying really hard to like make sure I also read the novellas. I cannot for the life of me remember what it was about, but I gave it 4 stars. And you know what? It's good enough for me because it's an in-depth book. So that is what I read this month. A little bit of romantasy, a little bit of my favorite crime series, romantic suspense series, if you will, out there. And that's all I've got for you guys today. I think I ended the month, once I go back and add in the books I forgot to write down, I think I ended around like 21 or 22, which I am very proud of that, given it was the first month back to school. My grandfather passed away, so I had to go to Montana with my family and deal with all that, which is where I got my Montana Grizzlies sweatshirt. But yeah, so that's all I've got for you guys tonight. Or, well, tonight when I'm filming it. But whenever it is you're watching it, that's all I got for you. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.